never thought I'd end up working nights in a mannequin factory. But I also didn't think I'd be 30, broke, and living in a converted utility closet behind my cousin's vape shop. But here we are. The job listing didn't give much detail, just a phone number, the words, night security, low stress, immediate start, and the promise of cash weekly. I figured it was either a scam or a front for something shady, but honestly, I didn't have the luxury of being picky. The phone interview lasted 3 minutes. No questions, no paperwork, just an address, a time, and, be on time, enter through the loading bay. The mannequins are already positioned, which was somehow the most unnerving part. I thought it was a joke. Elm Wood's full of weirdos. There's a cryptid-only cafe, which in my opinion is wholly unfair because the iced buns are amazing. There's a haunted B&B, and a guy who claims to be half moth that runs the town Facebook group, Elm Wood Matters. So yeah, I figured it was just one of those only in Elm Wood jobs. Spoiler, it wasn't. If you ever take a job at Posty Foam Display Solutions, do yourself a favour. Say hi to Susan. You'll regret it if you don't. My name's Casey, by the way. I figured I should introduce myself before things get weird. I turned up on the dot at 8 PM, expected someone to be outside waiting, clipboard, high-vis vest, little wave, normal job stuff. But no, nothing. Not a soul in sight. I spent 20 awkward minutes trying to open the massive loading bay doors, tugging at the rusted handles, wondering if I was already failing at some kind of test. Eventually, I found a side entrance, tucked behind an overflowing wheelie bin and half covered in wet cardboard. Inside was a small, dimly lit lobby. It smelled like floor cleaner and regret. The walls were plastered with faded safety posters, all early 2000s, and motivational slogans that hadn't aged well. Every display deserves a smile, stared at me from above a cracked vending machine. Beyond the lobby, the factory floor stretched out in long rows of shadowed shelving and pale figures. Mannequins stood in clusters, like they just paused mid-conversation. Their glossy white bodies caught the flickering lights in all the wrong angles. No footsteps, no chatter, just an awful industrial buzz of fluorescence. I found the staff room near the back. It looked like every break room ever. Tacky chairs, suspicious crumbs on the table, microwave last cleaned pre-COVID, and on the fridge, a laminated sheet of paper. 7 rules, taped dead centre, held up by a magnet that read, "Do not remove. For night shift eyes only. J." Now I don't know about you, but I tend to need a biscuit and a sit down before reading rules. So I casually removed the "Do not remove" magnet, popped the kettle on, and that's when I heard it. A sound from the factory floor, muffled, sharp, like plastic scraping on concrete. I froze. It came again. Scrack. Closer. I turned slowly towards the break room doorway, heart hammering, kettle whirring behind me. The blinds were down on the door. I couldn't see through, but I could just make out the silhouette of someone standing there, perfectly still, not moving an inch. I stayed frozen, too afraid to breathe. Then, in the smallest voice imaginable, I squeaked, "Jay?" The silhouette's head cocked to the side with a faint, unnatural click. Just then, clack, the "Do not remove" magnet fell off the fridge. I jumped. My eyes flicked to the magnet on the floor, then back to the door, then the magnet again. I inched forward, crouched slowly, picked it up like I was defusing a bomb, carefully pressed the list back onto the fridge. reapplied the magnet. I turned back to the door. The silhouette was gone. That's when I knew I was fucked. It was 9 p.m. by the time my hands stopped shaking enough to finish making tea. I sat down at the wonky break room table, teacup rattling against the saucer, and finally looked at the laminated list I'd clearly pissed off the universe by touching. 7 rules, all printed in bold block letters. The kind of font that screams, "I'm not kidding." Rule 1. Greet the mannequins when you arrive, especially Susan. She's the one in the polka dot headscarf. You'll need her later. Rule 2. Patrols are every 2 hours. Lock the security room door on exit. No one needs to be in there but you. Rule 3. At the beginning of every patrol, exit the control room and turn right. Your first stop is the staff room leading down to the warehouse floor. Do not miss a patrol. If you are not present, someone else will be. If you miss one, do not go to the staff room. You must start in the opposite direction. This confuses Edward. Edward was the security guard here before you. He died in a tragic plastic mold accident. He was a tyrant. Nobody liked him. If you slip up, Edward will come for you, and you'll end up as the new mannequin mold. He's been looking for a replacement since 2022. Rule 4. You may use the staff room for breaks. If there's someone in there, do not look at them. Keep your head down. Ask if they want your last Kit Kat. They won't reply. After 10 seconds, casually say, "Bet you're glad your shift's over," and exit the room. Leave the door open. Rule 5. If the blue phone rings at 3:16 a.m, pick up the receiver, but say nothing. If the caller sounds familiar, hang up immediately. Go to the toilets on the warehouse floor. Stay there for exactly 16 minutes. If someone enters, do not move until they have left. Rule 6. Do not use your mobile phone on shift. This is a work environment. Remain professional. Rule 7. If you hear footsteps that do not match your own, find Susan immediately. Stand beside her until they stop. I thought to myself, oh my fucking god, I'm gonna die. Then again, maybe not. Maybe it was hazing. I mean, who eats Kit Kats? Either way, I needed to get to the control room. No point sitting around waiting for the tea to judge me. I took the long hallway past the lockers. Still quiet, still weird. My footsteps echoed like I was the last human alive. That's when I saw her. The mannequin, tucked beside the security office door, wearing a faded floral headscarf. I almost didn't say anything. I was mid-step when it clicked. "Hi, Susan," I blurted out awkwardly. I swear, her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Cool. Totally normal. Definitely not cursed. I reached the control room door and immediately stalled. There was another mannequin inside, just standing there, next to the monitors, guarding a half-eaten chicken wrap. This one had no headscarf, just a blank face, arms slightly raised, fingers curled. I scanned the room twice, heart kicking up. No movement, no blood, no post-it saying, "Do not panic." Still, every instinct screamed, "Nope." So I crept in, grabbed it by the waist, half lifted, half dragged it out, like it was a misbehaving toddler, whispering, Sorry, every time I slipped. I leaned it against the wall, patted its shoulder once, backed into the control room. Then I shut the door and locked it. The control room was smaller than expected. No windows, no decoration, just function. It smelled faintly of burnt plastic and, bizarrely, sweet chili sauce. 3 monitors sat on the desk, angled towards the chair like a gamer setup. Except, instead of Fortnite, they streamed grainy CCTV footage of the warehouse floor. A large wall clock ticked above them. Then, strangely, the half-eaten chicken wrap was gone. I sat down at the monitors. Chair wheels squeaked in protest. That's when I noticed a sticky note slapped across the keyboard. 7 rules again. The exact same ones as the fridge, only this time a new line had been added, scrawled in red pen. Rule 8. Do not touch the mannequins. Oh, shit. I glanced at the clock. 9:50. Whoa, that went fast. 10 minutes till my first round. Or should I have gone as soon as I got in? Does this mean I've already missed one? See, this is why people need inductions. With a sigh, I pushed the chair back and scanned the monitors. Most feeds were the same grainy nothing. Empty aisles, frozen poses, the occasional flicker of static. Then one feed caught my eye. Camera 4. The corridor leading to the staff room. The door was wide open, and 4 mannequins stood just outside. No way. First shift and already a break-in. Someone had clearly come in and messed with the mannequins. I grabbed my torch and keys and headed out to check, turning right like a rule-following legend, only remembering halfway down to turn back and lock the control room door. Walking down to the staff room, I spotted the mannequin I'd leaned against the wall earlier. It hadn't moved, but it was holding the missing chicken wrap. My brain did a full reboot. Remembering I shouldn't have touched it, I blurted, listen, mate, I'm sorry for the touchy-feely before, Then I remembered the intruder. There had to be someone in here messing with me. I crept past the life-size hamburglar, edged towards the staff room, torch low. That's when I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps inside. Too heavy for plastic. I peeked around the corner and froze. A wall of mannequins blocked the path, shoulder to shoulder, perfectly still. What the fuck? I whispered. The footsteps grew louder, each one echoing in the narrow hallway. My brain fried. Was this a missed patrol thing, or a find Susan before something eats me thing? I spun on my heel, scanning the corridor like a contestant on some nightmare game show. Susan wasn't there. Not by the lockers, not by the office, not even lurking casually at the far end of the hall. The footsteps were closer now, slow, heavy, deliberate. A loud clash sent my heart into my throat. Something had barreled through the mannequins. Were they blocking its path? The footsteps were faster now, pounding. Shit, I muttered, off jogging back the way I came, scanning every shadow for that stupid floral headscarf. Then I saw it. A shadow, huge and distorted, sliding across the floor behind me. I turned, and Susan was right there, inches from my face, head tilted like she'd always been there. I yelped so loud it echoed, clutched my chest like that might keep my soul in. For 3 solid seconds I just stared at her blank, glossy face, still unmoving. Right, I whispered, stepping neatly to her side like this was normal. Just hanging out, being pals, totally fine. The footsteps slowed, then stopped. The hallway went dead quiet, except for the hum of the lights. The kind of silence that presses on your ears and makes you think you can hear your own heartbeat. I stood there, shoulder to shoulder with Susan, trying not to blink. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the distance, a metal shelf gave a sharp ping. My skin prickled. Rule 7 didn't say how long, so I wasn't moving until sunrise if I had to. A flicker at the edge of my vision made me glance towards the staff room. The light above the door buzzed twice, then went dark. When it came back on, the wall of mannequins was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just empty space. I swallowed hard, muttered, "Not my problem," and edged back toward the control room, keeping Susan in my peripheral the whole way. By some miracle, I made it. I slipped inside, shut the door, and turned the lock like I was sealing a tomb. The control room was quiet, too quiet. I dropped into the chair and scanned the sticky note rules again. Rule 3. Yeah, definitely broke that one. Rule 8. Technically that too. I rubbed my temples. Did the mannequins know? Were they blocking me? Or blocking that thing from reaching me? The clock read 10:07 p.m. Still a while before my next patrol. I sat there, sipping cold tea, trying not to spiral. The monitors buzzed. Static crackled across the feeds. When the clock hit midnight, I stood up, downed the last cold mouthful of tea, and gave Susan a little nod through the door. "All right, Susan," I muttered. "Let's do this properly this time." Halfway down a darker aisle, I stopped dead. Susan was there. She'd moved. I checked the floral scarf twice just to be sure. She wasn't just standing aimlessly. Her chin was tilted towards a rack of torsos. One plastic hand resting on a dusty crate half hidden under a shelf. I followed her gaze, dragging the crate into the light. The lid was stiff. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside was an old leather-bound notebook. The cover was warped from heat. Stamped across the front in gold lettering was E. Harrow, security log. Edwards? Nope. No way I was reading Edward's diary in the pitch-black aisle. I glanced at Susan, half expecting her to object. She stayed still, like her part in this was done. "Thanks, I think," I muttered. With the notebook under my arm, I bolted back to the control room, locked the door, placed it gently on the desk, like it might explode if I let it go too fast. Close up, it smelled faintly of melted plastic and burnt sugar. The pages were yellowed, brittle, still legible. I flicked to the first entry. January 14th. First week in the new post. Already had to discipline 2 temps for lateness. Breaks only during assigned times. No exceptions. Mannequins not to be touched under any circumstances. This isn't a playground. Strict didn't even cover it. January 22nd. Workers are slobby. No respect for the rules. Had to report Karen for improper storage of torsos. She complained they looked like they were watching her. I told her mannequins don't care. But between you and me, they give me the creeps too. Still, rules are rules, and I will enforce them. February 3rd. Kit Kat missing from the fridge. checked cameras. Saw Peterson's leaving the staff room. Removed the right arm from the mannequin in aisle 3. Left it on the floor where Peterson worked. Logged it as a safety violation. Peterson was suspended for negligence. Served him right. Don't steal from me. February 7th. 3 written warnings this week. Management still won't act. Says it's not my place, but as head of security I will enforce order. If they won't, I will. 10th of February. Another violation today. Came in early, loosened fittings on 3 mannequins. By noon 2 had collapsed, 1 lost a hand. Logged it under Michael's name. He swore he hadn't touched them. The rules are rules. Broken mannequins don't break themselves. If I have to break them to prove my point, then so be it. I sat back and closed the notebook. Wow. Edward was a prick. He wasn't just strict, he was petty. He sounded like the kind of guy who reported you for blinking too loud, and apparently he hated mannequins almost as much as people, which did not make me feel any better about sharing a building with his ghost. I glanced at Susan on the monitor feed. Blank face. Still. Yeah, I muttered. I think I'm Team Susan on this one. My tea was stone cold, so I decided to risk the break room again. I unlocked the door, stepped into the hallway, and scanned for company. All clear. The kettle was exactly where I left it, but when I went to reach the doorway, I froze. Someone was sitting at the table. Shit. I didn't have a Kit Kat. Rule 4 screamed in my head. If someone's in there, do not look at them. I dropped my gaze to the floor, heart in my throat. Shit. Do I need a Kit Kat, or can I just say it? Oh God, I'm gonna die. Do you want my last Kit Kat? I asked, voice shaking. Silence. I counted to 10, each second dragging like wet cement. Bet you're glad your shift's over, I muttered, backing towards the counter. The kettle hissed behind the figure, but no way was I reaching past them. I backed out slowly, eyes on the lino, shut the door quietly. Fine, I muttered. No tea. I'll try again next patrol. I started creeping back to the control room, then realised I had to creep back and open the door. I'm no good at this. Midnight came quicker than I expected. I locked the control room and tried to ignore the way the air felt heavier. Susan was waiting at the far end of the hall, angled towards the dark shelving like she wanted me to follow. And against my better judgment, I did. Halfway down the aisle, I found the crate she'd been guarding earlier, still shoved under the shelving. Only the notebook I'd taken from it was sitting neatly inside again, right in the centre, like it had been returned. I picked it up, muttered thanks to Susan, and carried on with the patrol. When I got back into the control room, I locked the door tight, so I was safe again. I flicked open the notebook. January 30th. I was informed today I'm being moved from the day security to night shift. Apparently, there have been several complaints about my conduct. All unfounded, of course. Management won't admit it, but they'd rather keep me out of sight than deal with it. Fine by me. No stupid workers to babysit at night. Just me, the silence, and these fucking mannequins. February 1st. Came in tonight to find 3 mannequins standing outside the staff room door. I checked the cameras. Nothing. No one touched them. I moved them back myself. An hour later, they were there again. This is exactly the kind of childish prank I'd expect from day staff. To think I'll break. Get myself worked up, but it won't happen. I know their game. February 5th. The mannequins are multiplying. There shouldn't be this many. I know exactly how many are in stock, and this is more. The rows are filling with faces I don't recognise. It's fine. I've got a plan. I leaned closer to the page. Pulse ticking up. I have a plan. I had to know what it was. I turned the page and froze. That sound again. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Somewhere just beyond the control room. My grip on the notebook tightened. The footsteps were steady, unhurried, and getting closer, each one echoing off the metal shelving. Rule 7 screamed in my head. Find Susan immediately. I slid the notebook under my arm without even marking the page, unlocked the control room door, and scanned the hallway. No Susan by the lockers, no Susan near the staff room. The footsteps kept coming. Oh, come on, I hissed, half running, half scanning every corner for the stupid polka dot headscarf. I rounded another corner. Empty. The footsteps were closing in, pounding out a slow, awful rhythm behind me. I kept running, scanning wildly for that polka dot headscarf. And then I skidded to a stop. 2 mannequins stood side by side in the middle of a corridor I'd never noticed before, both with their arms raised and fingers pointing down its length like a creepy plastic signpost. One of them had a half-eaten chicken wrap dangling from its hand. Right, helping or sending me to my doom? Cool, love that. I edged past them, following the narrow hallway until it opened up into a large cold room that smelled faintly of resin and burnt plastic. This was where they made the mannequin parts. Along one wall, towering steel moulds stood up like giant clamshells. Most was smooth and featureless, except one. One mould had detail. You could see the texture of the skin, the fine lines around the mouth, even the bristles of beard stubble were perfectly captured in the plastic. My stomach turned. The footsteps came again, right behind me. I spun, and there was Susan, stood in the doorway, perfectly still. I stepped in beside her, matching her pose as best I could, notebook still pressed awkwardly to my side. The footsteps didn't slow. They kept coming, heavy and deliberate, echoing off the concrete floor. My pulse stuttered in my ears. Whoever, whatever it was, they weren't in a hurry. They knew exactly where I was. The sound reached the threshold, and then nothing. Silence. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Every instinct screamed to bolt, but Rule 7 was burned into my brain like a brand. The seconds dragged until the hair on the back of my neck prickled, like something was still there, just out of sight. I risked the tiniest glance towards the doorway. Empty. Or, I thought it was. Something shifted in the corner of my eye, not in the doorway, but in the mould behind me. A faint creak. I turned my head just enough to see it. The mould with the stubble was no longer empty. There was a face inside now. Its eyes were open. I snapped my gaze back to Susan, heart pounding. and forced myself to stand perfectly still. The face in the mould smiled, and the footsteps started again, only this time from inside the room. The footsteps circled slowly now, deliberate, like whoever was making them was studying me from every angle. Susan didn't move. I didn't move. The face in the mould did. Its expression shifted, the smile flattening into something more focused, watching. The air felt heavier with every pass of those unseen footsteps. Then they stopped again, right beside me. Warm breath, not plastic, ghosted across the back of my neck. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything, but my legs were locked in place. A single cold fingertip brushed my wrist, and then nothing. The room was empty, the mould was empty, the footsteps were gone. Only Susan remained, still standing like nothing had happened. I didn't think, I just bolted, notebook clutched tight. I didn't stop running until I was inside the control room with the door locked and my back pressed against it. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the notebook. I dumped it on the desk and slid into the chair and stared at the monitors without really seeing them. 12:37 a.m. I wasn't even halfway through my shift. I couldn't do this until 6. No way. My brain was already hanging by a thread, and I still had another patrol to do at 2 a.m, assuming I even made it that far. Then the monitors flickered again, static crawling across a few feeds before settling back to their grainy watchfulness. I grabbed my mug, forgetting it was empty, and muttered, "Just make it till 6. Just make it till 6. And then I sat like that, until 2 a.m, barely moving, except a glance at the clock. When it finally rolled around, I unlocked the door and headed out, moving slow and low like some kind of half-trained spy. Every shadow got side-eyed, every creak got a death glare. It was the longest, quietest patrol of my life. Nothing moved, no footsteps, no mannequins in strange places, just me and my own paranoia. By the time I made it back to the control room, my nerves were frayed. And then I saw it. On the desk, right in front of the monitors, was a steaming cup of tea, and beside it, a Kit Kat, still in its wrapper. I blinked at them. "Thanks, Susan," I muttered. I didn't touch either of them. I stared at the tea and the Kit Kat a little longer, then sat down. The steam curling from the mug made the room smell faintly of something floral. It certainly wasn't factory standard break room tea. Against my better judgment, I started to feel not safe exactly, but less like I was about to be stuffed into a mould. I slid the notebook back in front of me, flipping to the page I'd left mid-chase. Edward's neat, angry handwriting waited for me. Time to find out what the plan was. February 6th. If they want to play games, fine. I've started removing parts from the mannequins. Heads, arms, whatever I can carry. Locking them in the maintenance cupboard. No parts, no posing. Let them try to be funny now. I let out a low whistle. Yeah, nothing says professional security guard like dismembering your workplace decor. February 7th. Found the parts back in place this morning. The cupboard was still locked. No sign of tampering. Cameras show nothing. The day staff are getting clever, slipping past without tripping any alarms. Won't happen again. I glanced up at the monitors. A couple of mannequins were visible on camera 3, exactly where I'd last seen them. Still, it was hard not to imagine them just appearing somewhere else the second I looked away. February 8th. I've changed tactics. Destroying the pieces this time. Snapped arms. Smashed a head clean in two. Stripped the fittings so nothing can be put back. Let's see them fix that. Great, I muttered. Piss off the unblinking army. That'll end well. February 9th. They know. I don't know how, but they know. Every mannequin in the building is facing the control room tonight. I haven't left since clogging in. I feel like if I open the door, they'll be waiting. I instinctively glanced to the control room door. Locked. My tea and Kit Kat sat untouched beside me. My stomach was grumbling a bit. February 10th. They tried to get in last night. Heavy footsteps right up to the control room door. No knock, no voices, just standing there, breathing. I didn't move until dawn. My grip on the notebook tightened. I didn't like that one. February 11th. I inspected the mould room first thing. There's a new mould stand prepped in the back. Fresh resin supplies, clamps, everything ready for a cast. No orders on the books for a new model. Someone's planning something. I'll find out what. The next page was gone, torn clean out. The ripped edge still clinging to the spine. I stared at the ragged paper edge where the missing page had been, trying not to imagine what Edward might have written. The clock ticked over to 2:27. Too early for the next patrol, too late for a nap. I sighed, slid the notebook aside and let my eyes wander over the monitors. Most showed the same grainy nothing. Static haze dials, frozen mannequins, long shadows under flickering strips of light. Then camera 6 flickered. A mannequin that had been halfway down the aisle was suddenly at the far end, much closer to the control room. I blinked and looked again. Camera 2, another mannequin, closer. Camera 4, 2 of them now, side by side, both facing the camera like they knew I was watching. My mouth went dry. One of them was holding something. And it wasn't a chicken wrap. I leaned closer, squinting at the blurry image until my brain caught up. It was a single sheet of paper, torn at the edge. It was the missing notebook page. I pushed the chair back, pulse thudding in my ears. The monitors crackled again, just enough static to blur every mannequin's face. When the picture cleared, the corridor on camera 4 was empty. And then something thumped against the control room door. Once, twice, then silence. It didn't move. Then, a soft scratch at the bottom of the door. Something slid through the gap into the room. A sheet of paper, torn at the edge. The missing notebook page. I stared at it, my mind yelling at me not to touch it, but my hand still crept forward, slow and curious. The tips of my fingers brushed the edge, and it snapped back under the door so fast it burned the skin on my knuckle. My chair slammed into the desk as I jumped to my feet. Whoever or whatever was out there had just played me like a cat with a mouse. Without thinking, I unlocked the door and yanked it open. The hallway was empty. Or at least, it was until I noticed them. 3 mannequins stood in a perfect line halfway down the corridor, all turned towards me. One still held the paper, dangling it like bait. Every hair on my arm stood on end. They didn't move, but the way they were arranged made it look like they were waiting for me. Yeah, no thanks, I muttered, taking a step back into the control room. That's when I realised, behind them, at the far end of the hall, Susan was standing, head tilted, scarf perfectly neat, one arm lifted just slightly, pointing towards the staff room. A cold thought slid into my head before I could stop it. Is this what they did to Edward? I shoved it aside. No, that was stupid. Creepy plastic army or not, they couldn't actually... Right? If I'd known then what I know now, I might have trusted her. But in that moment, all I could think was, they're herding me. I backed into the control room and shut the door. The lock clicked and I stayed there, staring at it like I expected it to vanish. The rest of the shift could crawl by for all I cared. I wasn't opening that door until I had to. The next patrol was 4 a.m. When the time finally came, I cracked the door and slipped out, moving slow, every step deliberate. The factory was quiet. Too quiet. I made it past the staff room. The door was closed, thank God. And that's when I saw it. The last ripped notebook page. It was stuck to the staff room door with a single strip of yellow tape. The paper was warped, edges crinkled like it had been handled too many times. The handwriting was shakier than the earlier entries. Rushed, uneven. February 12th. They're angry. I know it. I took more parts last night, smashed the rest. Thought I was proving a point, but they're watching us now, all of them. I can hear them in the walls. The footsteps don't stop anymore. They want me to go to the mould room, but I'm not stupid. I know what they're planning. Management won't believe me, but I'll show them. I'll bring proof. The sentence ended in a long, jagged drag of ink, trailing off the page entirely. I stood there, reading it again, my fingers going cold. Behind me, the factory floor creaked. I turned, heart hammering, and there she was, Susan, head tilted, scarf perfectly neat, standing no more than 6 feet away. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Well, I stared, she didn't blink. And the rest of the shift went fine, with Susan never far away. What have I learned? Follow the rules. All of them. Even the ones that make no sense. Especially the ones that make no sense. And if you ever find yourself working nights at Posty Foam Display Solutions, say hi to Susan. Bring a Kit Kat. Oh, and don't touch the mannequins. They'll boil you alive in resin and make you an angry mannequin ghost. Allegedly. Hi guys, thanks for watching. This is an Elm Wood story, so it was written by me. This one's a little special because it's actually the longest narration I've ever done. For you it's about 50 minutes, but for me it was 6 hours of recording. I was constantly repeating myself like a million times until it sounded halfway decent. So if you made it all the way to the end, you're officially tougher than my vocal cords. Stick around for more Elm Wood, and maybe shorter ones next time. And here's a fun fact for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Did you know the word mannequin is actually Dutch, and it means little man? So yeah, the next time you're in a shop, remember you're surrounded by an army of little men. Sleep tight.